This conference will now be recorded.
So I am very happy to be here. I was going to be online, and then Sister asked if I would come, and I'm really, really glad that I am present here because, as many of you know, I don't live close to any Salesians. So to be breathing with them is actually a real gift. um, I One of the things I love about being part of the Salesians and having been called to this vocation is that it is, in fact, a bloom where you're planted thing. And it has shown, God has opened so many doors to me since the day I made my promise. I remember that day talking to another woman who made her promise, and she said, I feel like I don't know what's ahead, but I've just said yes to a big adventure. And in fact, it has been that. I've been involved in many different things, but one of the things that has always been the most important to me is the way that the Salesian spirit can be shown and felt and used and shared in everything. So for me, one of the best jobs I've ever had is being a mom. And I am blessed with two daughters on earth and a child in heaven. And I sort of take under my wing a lot of other people who come my way. That has happened in the crisis center where I worked, where I was a cook, and people would come into the kitchen. I thought of Brother John Zito so many times because he would say the kitchen is the heart of the home. And it was a secular situation, but God was always there. People would say, "What are you making? It tastes so good." And I would, and how do you make it? And I would say, "Well, I pray for you while I make it." And then they'd start to talk and they'd ask questions. And the next thing you know, one time we had a little, basically a hootenanny revival with songs we were singing to God in the kitchen, and you could see everything because it was like a goldfish bowl, one glass wall after another, because addicts do things they're not supposed to, so you got to watch. But I I have had the opportunity to use a motherly sense in some of the other calls I've received since then, working with um, foster families against a system that was putting children at risk. And I have had the opportunity um, to walk with immigrant family for about 20 years, and they're all now citizens. But at every turn, my Salesian family became the support that I needed. I remember a Salesian priest one time when I hit the wall with the immigration, and I said, I can't do this anymore. I just don't know what to do. It's too big for me. And he was the one who calmed me and said, Denise, this is your job. God has given it to you, and you have to see it through. And you will, because he'll be there. And he was, and it took decades, but we managed it. I remember when my brother-in-law passed away right before the festival, and I had been looking forward to being part of that. And but I knew I had to leave because I needed to be with my husband. Sister Denise is the one who called and left a message, which until I screwed up my phone, um, would listen to over and over again because it was her faith, her voice, her calmness that was able to get me off the edge. I knew where I was supposed to be. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. And she guided me back to that loving kindness with her sound and her words. And that's what family does for each other. Father Tom has been talked me off the ledge a few times. And in my own center, Rita who's not on screen, but she's on the call, Rita and Kathy have many times when I needed to be interviewed by television. I called Kathy one time because I wasn't ever expecting that in my life. And she calmed me and assured me of God's presence in my life and the strength to go forward with Don Bosco's desire to protect children, because always it was about children and young people. And I was involved with this group because of a sense of love and motherliness. And so they have many times, anyone in my family, the Salesian family, I can call and they will help me. And I know that I have this vast resource around me. And I know Father Tom was reminding me of when we were in Rome, when our regulations, we were in the process of voting on the regulations in 2006, seven. And we had the great opportunity to renew our promise. We were able to go into St. Peter's Square when just to for the popes praying of the Angelus, but we went through the catacombs where of the popes, and we stopped there. The whole association, people from all over the world, cooperators from all over the world, and our delegates, the FMA and SDB, were with us. And we stopped, and I was right in front of St. Peter's grave. And there I was able to renew my promise, and I could hear people in all the languages of the association, of all these people. And we renewed our promise, and I was so moved by the fact that for 2,000 years, this amazing church into which we have been called, and in it to the family of Don Bosco, this church has been existing for that long. And by the grace of God who loved us, who came to save us from our own stupidity and make a chance for us to go to heaven, all of this was just so present and so moving. And that was in the presence of my Salesian family. I have been so grateful for those high moments, and I've also been grateful for the moments when I couldn't be active in the family because of illness of my children or my own, and I was never forgotten. I've always been able to call on people in the family for help. Prayerful help is mostly what we would need. But as I have become now, never sought, but here I am as the coordinator, I am meeting more and more people in the family, and I am learning to depend upon them, to ask them for help, because we are a family. One of the great things, and I hope you'll encourage everyone in your centers or in your communities to be part of the Salesian Family Spirituality Days in whatever way you can, because that was something, doing that since COVID, and I am not a computer person, and anybody who knows me knows that, but that is one virtual thing that I think is really great, because now Salesian Family Spirituality Days are open to all of us. We can all celebrate, and so we can share in small groups. We can listen to the presentation of the Strena. We can hear the conversations that go on and talk about them. And so that is one way. All of that, working on Marian Day with people from around the province, mostly in the Northeast, of course, but talking with other people, with people in other parts of the family who come to the Marian Day, and to be able to work side by side with them. For a while, they were little squares, like most of you are right now on this screen. But some of the people are now like real to me in a true way. I've met with them, I've eaten with them, I've laughed with them, and so that whole sense of family is developing. It's getting, it's growing and growing, and I am so grateful for that. It was never anything I would have expected in my life. But when Brother Pasquale was talking about sharing and sort of doing things, it's I think I feel like, because I've had conversations with Andrea about sharing things like that, like making sure we all know we each have, just like in our human families, we each have some stuff you just do with the people you live with, your mother, father, children, whatever. But the extended family, we are an extended family, and there's an awful lot of stuff that we need to just all know about and be part of together, and not and the Salesian Family Spirituality Days, like I'm on a high because I'm hanging with some Salesians today, and I get to do this again, in a couple of weeks, even if it's virtual. But I know that I grow more when I speak to other Salesians. I have learned so much today, and even listening to the banter when some of you picked the same saint, like that's really funny. Especially the Canadians are all hopping on one boat. I don't know what's going on up there, but I think that like we start to laugh and we know each other in a different way. But I think it's one of the things one of the things for me that I love about being a Salesian, and I'm grateful for, is that we, whatever talents we have, whatever gifts we have, and God takes them and will use them because there's a place for them in our family, and there's a place for each of us to use those. Again, the motherly thing for me, um, I I have been accused of mothering everybody, and I know I do that. And whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but it has often worked out well. I remember one night with Live Stations, Phyllis Hakeem, who is a Salesian Cooperator, in my center, and Father Jim Serbone, now passed, started Live Stations in a reenactment of the Passion of Christ. It's maybe 29 years now that it's been going on, except for the COVID years. We have anywhere from 10 kids to 45 kids, depends upon the year, who are part of it. And so many times, we do a good night with them. I've been introducing more and more Salesian things in the non-Salesian world where I live. But I remember so many times with the kids, like thinking about St. John Bosco. Somebody earlier mentioned whispering in the ear. One of our kids, family of 9, really strong Catholic family, and I don't know what went wrong, but they went on the rails. The dad went on the rails and was gone, and the kids were really struggling for a couple years. And I remember one night, the one girl came in and she was late, which was unusual. And I just remember kind of scooping her up, arm around his shoulder, so nobody could see that she was starting to cry, walked into the sacristy, and we got to talk because and just whispering in her ear as we went, just so she would know that she wasn't alone and she was loved. And there are so many times when something happens, and I think directly of St. John Bosco, or I think of another Salesian whom I've seen in action, setting that this a pattern of kindness, loving kindness, and that's just really important to me. So I I don't know. Do you guys have any questions you would like to ask about things we do? I mean, most of you have 1,000 other things that you do with your Salesian call, church catechism, which I do too. But I know right now I'm feeling really good about the possibility of this parts of our family growing more together and working more together.
Denise, I have a question.
Sure.
So I know that you're talking about kind of how it goes through every single aspect of a cooperator's life.
Mm-hmm.
But are there some examples? I don't remember the correct terminology, but something like personal project or whatever it's called. Like some
The
examples of
project of
that.
apostolic life.
Yeah. So are there some examples that you could give, like that you've seen in our province that people have done besides like just the everyday, but like kind of living that out in a very like specific, focused way as well?
Sure. The question was, are there any examples of like a project that people in our province have done, like a very focused project, basically, because we're called again to live our Salesian spirituality, but we can take on projects. Pat Sobel, who is a cooperator in Inverness, Florida, is an amazing example of that. One of the focus of her work is foster children, encouraging families to take in foster children. But she has established a home. It's called the Don Bosco Home, and they're the Dominic Savio Center at Inverness, Florida. But the Don Bosco Home is a place for foster children. And she and her husband have adopted some of the kids, but there are others they've not adopted who live in that home. And that center, the cooperators of that center, are very focused on activities for the kids, spiritual activities for them, fun activities for them, giving them a sense of family that they don't have. When they come in, when you're coming in from foster care, something's wrong at home. So that's like in our province, that's a really like stellar example of like someone picking up a ball and running with that ball and really focusing on how to resolve some problems. So yeah, I think if that answers your question, yeah, that does happen. Many of us labor for 20 or 30 years with a project, or teach catechism, as volunteers, because we are called to work in our local church. Some are in Salesian parishes, but many are not. So we in our this is our project of life, and we are called within that to be active in our local parish. So we have not only responsibility to our association, but to our local parish, and to be helpful and offer our services, whatever they are, to our parish. So some of what we do may be defined by, it's always defined by our locale. We have to, we really do serve where we're planted, um, but it can be defined by the needs of our specific parish too. Thank you.
Certainly, the Salesian Cooperators of the Don Bosco Prep Ramsey Center took a major lead and service role in putting together the Salesian Family Festival.
Mhm.
They were what we call the A team. They did a lot of work.
And that,
Others had contributed, but
Yeah.
they were the ones who took over
mhm.
activities, parts of it.
And that's, as cooperator centers, we are, we try, the local centers try to help with Marion Day, for example. It shouldn't just fall to there is a group there, but it shouldn't just be their responsibility, nor should it be the responsibility of like the FMA or the SDB to do the whole thing. And so sometimes I think, oh, it's kind of an unfortunate name, cooperators, because there was a time when cooperating with whatever the priest asked you to do or the sister asked you to do, the laundry or whatever, made you a cooperator, but that's not it. It really is beyond that. There is a sense of vocation. It's a call. It's not a call that everyone, my husband's very involved. He would be called a friend of Don Bosco. He does not feel a call to be a cooperator, because there really is a sense interiorly that you have, that you are called to do this. You are called to serve in this manner. And it changes who you are if you truly, seriously undertake this. You're changed by that, and you grow every day in it, because you grow more and more aware of the responsibility you have to others in the family, the responsibility that you have to show God to young people, to the poor, to anyone around you. And when I say poor, I mean we're out feeding the homeless. I don't just mean the people who don't have a meal. I mean the ones like the addicts that I serve. They're the poor. Those people are often poor in spirit. There are so many people out there that we see every day who don't have any idea who God is. Even young kids who are well fed, well groomed, making the big teams, and they have no idea who God is. And that, to me, that poverty is much greater than the person I'm feeding on the street on a Thursday night. So that's really where, as we grow, as certainly as a Salesian family, but as cooperators, we can move out there. And I don't, in some places, I mean, there's a cooperator in Italy that I remember hearing them like speak on something during Salesian Family Spiritualities, I think last year or the year before, and she's mayor of her city. Like, that's how, because we can work in the political sphere, because we are lay people, so we can take those roles on. And so from time to time, I've been involved in different things going on politically, but I'm not, it's not my big thing. That's not what I'm really called to, but I do get out there sometimes. So you really, we can be stretched in a lot of different directions, but when you are stretched, but you have the Spirit of God running through you, that's like got a lot of elasticity that can just keep going. So you're not going to break if that's what you've got that you're depending on. So, but it is, but the sense of family, which for me is growing. There have been times when 20 something years ago, I remember thinking, are we really a family? Because it seemed a few times that it was like, here's the SDB. I didn't know all the branches, but here's the SDBs, and there were some SWs who totally loved cooperators, and then others didn't seem to know who we were or what we were. That was when I started to get more involved, and I'm like, oh, this is really weird. And there were FMAs who loved us and were involved with us, and others didn't know what to make of us. But I don't think that's so much this situation now. And I think we are developing. I think hopefully we are developing a sense of self of who we are as cooperators, and and doing things we need to do. Not that it's a bad thing to bake cookies for the school team, but it's not the only thing we do. So it's I think realizing when we go out every day that we are called. Maybe I should say it that way, not just what we're called to, but that we have a calling. When we go out, we should be looking to fulfill it in the best way we can.
One part that I would chime in on would be any apostolic initiative which any one of the groups undertakes and is brought before the group, before the local consulta, the local council of leadership, and say, we have an idea to do this. Okay, get all of the groups together and take from each of the group what they contribute, what gifts they have, and make it a Salesian family activity, perhaps coordinated by one of the groups or by the youth ministry office. That's all fine. But now when you sit down at the table and you say, okay, we're going to run a retreat, we're going to run a week of service, we're going to run a pilgrimage, whatever we're going to do. And you start to give out jobs, and you automatically think of the cooperators as the one who's going to provide lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that well.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed it. I've benefited from it. But they can do that, but invite them in on ground floor level about how do you help the young people to process a powerful experience. Lay people who live in families their life, mothers and fathers. If anyone would be expert at trying to draw out from young people their feelings after having met people who are homeless and don't know what to make of it, they would be of assistance. So I would just, as a whole, if we're going to plan any kind of a thing, that members of the Salesian family, particularly lay people, and maybe those people who don't have the credential of being assigned as a youth minister or a religious educator or an administrator, could contribute.
Mm-hmm.
And can bring stuff that the rest of us can't.
Yeah, we have a family filled with so many gifts. When you were talking and you talked about how if the FMAs need you, you have to go, and if the cooperators. And I feel like when you were saying that, I thought, oh, that's how I feel about our family too. Like if you need help with something, and like Father Tom said, it's not just to make lunch for something. It's like if you need a cooperator, you need a layperson's view on how do you handle this, or then one of us should be able to come and say, I can help, or so and so can help, or for the sisters, do you need to have like a layperson in the middle of something to help out with another perspective? We should help, or with the service we can provide, or who do I know, or what can I do? What are our skills that we can provide here to help in the family?
And then the planning,
Yeah,
it doesn't start just at the time that we have to do the thing. It starts all the way from the beginning, from the planning, from the vision. We as religious need the input of the laity so that we're not disjointed from the world, because we're not out there. We're immersed in the atmosphere of the world, and unfortunately we're sometimes tainted by it, also within the church, within the religious, but we're not living day to day in the workplace, in the secular world, that you are in most cases. And we need to have that input to understand exactly what is happening out there. I don't care if you watch the news or what you do. We all know that the news is all jaded and it's all from the point of view of the one who produces it and pays the salaries. So living out there in the world really makes it real, because you have your hand on the pulse of what's happening in society. Okay, so that we need that from the beginning. We can't just have you even just do, even if it's a religious job, at the activity. We need it in the input phase,
Yeah.
so that we can plan appropriately, and not from being in a convent or a rectory.
And I feel like that happens sometimes. It doesn't happen all the time, but I feel like that's where we as a family, maybe we as my council, for example, our Cooperator Provincial Council, I own them, but it's mine. I love them. And they're mine in that sense. So we need to be able to say, I think something, or I heard from Sister Denise about an activity. What can we do to help her? What can we offer her? Do we have a skill? Do we have, and many of us, for example, when sisters and priests know who we are and what we do, to call on us to do some of those things. We're ever in this situation, we're ever in that, we need to make that known to each other. Like, these are things we're doing, So, but I love a big family. My husband has from a family of 13, and it could be a crowd sometimes, but I like big families. And this big family covers a lot of territory and a lot of skills, but is bound together by the desire to share Christ with the world, with the loving spirit of Don Bosco. That ties us all together. And Mary Help of Christians. True.
It's weird. It's weird that you should say that. This is Louise speaking. I'm the administrator of our provincial cooperators in Canada. And one of the things that I thought that I would do is get out some sort of survey to all our coordinators, cooperators in Canada, and have them say what their skill is, so that when we do have a project that we want to do provincial wise, then we can ask for those people that have certain skills. Because I know that this year, the last 3 years, we're trying to get a gathering, one common gathering for the celebration of the 150-year anniversary. And if you know Canada, it is really wide.
Yes.
Okay, really, really wide. So we want to come together in one place. And we do have some people that would like to do that. But there's like organizing a little festival, sister, like you do, So that I thought of getting out there and asking our own people throughout Canada, what is your skill? Like, for instance, where is Elizabeth? Elizabeth, where are you? You lovely, lovely lady.
She's
We
in the
wanted to
middle.
run.
There she is.
There she is. We wanted to run the survey of even asking people, what would you like to do to celebrate this 150th anniversary? And we got a survey that Elizabeth helped us with. Okay. And at one point it was me and Rosa, who's the secretary, and Elizabeth, sort of in one session, she went through the whole thing. Oh my God, Elizabeth, you were wonderful. And then we took it over, and it was like the blind leading the blind, but we got it done. So at that point we said, oh God, Elizabeth is an expert in that. Maybe we can become experts in it so that we can help the other people, type of thing. So that a list of requesting what are your personal skills maybe can bring us all together, and whenever we have a project, we all join together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's,
Right.
And Elizabeth is also, she has gotten Dennis and I involved in saying the rosary online, having her meetings online, and I'm going to cry because I love you, Elizabeth. Thank you. It's so very lonely up here, and you've been
Love you
wonderful.
too.
and just so you know, today sometime is the our province's MailChimp is going out, and I
It's
honestly,
already went out.
it did go out. Okay, it went out, and hopefully, there were a few Adama people and a few other people who were going to be added to it. But there is an opportunity if you're not able to get a small group together at your center or whatever. Elizabeth's group is hosting a small group session on Sunday, correct? Or on Saturday? I can't remember.
Sunday, 1:30 Central Standard Time.
Okay.
On what day?
So on Sunday of this, what is it, the 19th?
This, yeah, the
19th.
Salesian Family Spirituality Weekend.
Yeah. So you can go ahead and sign up for that if you would like to. So that's one of the ways that, and so it'll be open not just to cooperators. And again, there are times when we just kind of need to be cooperators. But I have to say, it's never been a problem to have anybody else in the family there. So I don't really know why I feel like I got to say that. But the bottom line is we are a family and we welcome other people. And that is one great service, which her center offered up. And I think that's one of the things that's really important for us to remember as cooperators and as humans in general. Offer up your skills and talents. God didn't give them to you for no reason. And so if he's given you a skill or talent, offer it up and put it to his service. And you'll know the right times when you pray about it. You'll know the right times because the door will open for you to do that.
I have a question.
Pascal.
My question is, personally speaking, there are two temptations that I tend to fall into time to time. And anytime I hear about Cooperator, I see age. You know, I see fewer and fewer younger cooperators. I see more and more older cooperators. That's the first
Yeah.
temptation. And the second temptation is I tend to see the cooperators as like the third option. Okay, you cannot be an FMA. Okay, you can be an STD. All right, what about this third option? So for me, there is that failure time to time to see it as a beautiful, joyful vocation. So my question is, with these two temptations in my mind, you know, how can I speak about this vocation with joy so that we can attract young people, not just those who are old?
Well, let me take that.
All right.
Do you want to say something first?
Well, I was just going to comment on what Don Bosco did. He got the kids involved ministering to other kids, but he trained them and he made sure that they knew what they were talking about with the faith. And he didn't just pick anybody and just say, okay, go minister to that kid over there. He chose the best and he sent them. And once they were involved in mission, they found their vocation. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think so. If you're working with young people and you see they have a calling or an affinity just to Don Bosco, but maybe they are somebody that you think would be a parent at some point, because it's not a fallback. You know, oh, I can't be a priest, can't be a sister. I guess I'll be a cooperator. It's not a fallback. It has been for some people. I know that is true, but it is a call in itself, and it's a call to live in the world with this spirit. And so if you look at that vocation that way, your vocation as an SDB is to live as a priest in service to God and with the Salesian charism, correct? That's that's your call. My call is not that. I'm not called to be a sister. I mean, at one point when I was young, I certainly thought about it like most Catholic girls did my age, but it was not what I was called to. And that became more and more clear to me as time wore on. But how to serve. And I didn't know anything about the cooperators when I was young. If I had, I may have been a cooperator from a much earlier time in my life. But it is a vocation of its own. But to encourage people who, like Sister was saying, train them, make sure that they know, what they're doing. Because it isn't just to do good thing. We do good, but it's not just odds and ends of things. It should be the focus of our whole life, that we want to raise our children with this. We want to involve ourselves in the school with this sense that we want to, whatever we undertake, whether, like for me, cooking in the crisis center, helping an immigrant family, helping these families, all of it had to be done because of God and because of love of Christ, born out with a sense of kindness. It has to come that way. And so I would just say, please don't think of it as a fallback, because it isn't. It's something separate, but it's very real vocation. And but I understand that it might look that way, because it just, people misunderstand it sometimes. But encourage people. If you have young people that you would encourage to be a catechist because they seem to have a deep faith, maybe who knows what direction they'll go in, but train them, guide them, and give them this option, because some people want something and they want to be connected and they know that they're called somehow, but they don't know anything about the Salesian Cooperators.
Well, we're supposed to have a good night, but I think we just had it. So if there aren't any other questions or comments, because we're going to be going off to evening prayer in a little while, but you can see people are getting a little drained at this point. Anybody, we'd like to take a screenshot, so I'm going to encourage everybody to turn on your camera and smile big if it's not on. And then we'll just conclude with a prayer, and we'll give you a little heads up for tomorrow, and make sure you know what your homework is and that you can find it in your email. Okay, we've got just about everybody with the camera on. We're just waiting on a couple people here. Yes, please. Okay, good. Denise, where'd you go? My gosh, she disappeared on me all of a sudden. All right, I'll get in the picture too. Okay.
You're good there.
All right, I guess. All right, well, okay. Everybody smile big. Say Salesian.
Lesion.
Okay, great. I took it, or I'm taking it better. There we go. Thank you, everybody. And so homework is in your email, or some here are going to get hard copy of where do we go with all of this. We just heard that we're all called to sanctity. We're all called to live as Salesians wherever we're planted. We're all called to follow the rule of our life, our constitutions. But we're in separate silos unless we can understand that we are family called to be one by Don Bosco himself. So what you have in your email is a rough draft. This is not for distribution to the world because it is not finalized. We're giving it to you because we're talking about it and we're sharing on it. But realize that they're still working on it in Rome, and they're still working on it with the World Consulta of the Salesian Family, all of which we'll go into tomorrow, so you know what I'm talking about when I say the World Consulta of the Salesian Family. It deals with that last chapter, literally the last 2 pages of the charter that Father took us through today, through a gallop, which has been expanded into this document. And it speaks about how do we accompany and animate and come together and work as Salesian family. A major piece of the document is about the delegates, the FMA and SDB, and in some cases, like Andrea, lay delegates to the family, to the cooperators, to the individual groups. But also, how do we come together? And what's the goal here? So, your homework for tonight, our homework, my homework, is to read the first section of that document, to read part 1. And we'll share on that tomorrow. Part 2, we're going to go into a little bit more deeply, because it's important that each member of each group understands the purpose of the delegate and what the function of the delegate is, and that the delegate knows the fullness of the responsibility, at the same time the limitations to that responsibility. So that's our day for tomorrow, and it will be all based on this rough draft. So please, you have it, but don't spread it around. Okay, and we're going to ask that very strongly. There was an original hope to have it in print form and finalized for the Salesian Family Spirituality Days to be given out in a couple of weeks in Torino, but I don't know that that happened. I don't think it happened. I think it's still in the rough draft stage. So we'll find out. Okay. Any,
This is,
Father Tom?
if you're interested, wondering about Salesian Family Spirituality Days, this was the program last year, Salesian Family Spirituality Days.
Father, I don't know. Okay, yeah, maybe they can't see you.
So it's
Okay.
all here in English, and then this is the way the Strena was handed out to everybody, and then there's all of the prayers, and English and Spanish. So it's so I'll just leave it here during supper, if anybody is interested in just looking through and see what is happening. By the way, according to Father Mike Pace, when the COVID struck, there was some conversation about canceling Salesian Family Spirituality Days. And he said, no, you don't have to do that. We went through this in Marian Day in New York the year before, and we did almost the whole thing virtually. And we have people come in. You don't have to cancel it. You can do it. You can go online. And eventually that argument won. And according to him, it was after the example and the suggestion of based on our experience. So.
Okay, I'm just looking for the Prayer to Mary Help of Christians that we all know by Don Bosco, because there are a few by him. How come I know it's here somewhere, but I can't find it.
You did send us a prayer.
No, that was the Jubilee prayer, I believe.
Yes.
Oh yeah, right, Jubilee, yeah.
Sister Denise, I have a question.
Yes, Jim.
Is that document part of the two that are attached to that email you sent out this morning with the link to the meeting?
No, I sent the document, I think maybe about an hour ago.
Okay, then I haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I cannot find, I know it's on here. I don't know why I can't find it, but I'm going to make the screen visible now, and we'll be able to pray this particular prayer to Mary, Help of Christians. Why? I don't know. Strange, because I purposely did this yesterday. Okay, this is for the home. So if you want to say this in your home, to share it, remember we're supposed to spread devotion to Mary, Help of Christians, and we definitely ask her to defend us, to keep the faith, but also to protect us literally, physically, spiritually, morally, in every way. So we can pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. The entrustment to Mary, Help of Christians, for all of us and all of our homes, convents, rectories. Most Holy Virgin Mary, appointed by God to help Christians, we elect you Lady and Mistress of this house. Deign, we beseech thee, to show thy mighty help in it. Preserve it from earthquakes, from thieves, from villains, from raids, from war, and from all other calamities that you know. Bless, protect, defend, guard as your own the people who live and will live in it. Preserve them from all misfortunes and accidents, but above all, grant the all-important grace to avoid sin. Mary, help of Christians, pray for those who live in this house, who consecrated herself to you forever. So be it.
So be it.
Mary, help of Christians,
Pray for us.
Mother Mazzarello,
Pray for us.
Pray for
Saint
us.
Joseph,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody. Well, 8:30,
See
turn
you
it on.
tomorrow. God bless. Bye-bye.
9
Sister
o'clock.
Denise. Sister
Thank
Denise.
you.
Sister.
Do your homework.
Sister,
Okay.
I want to ask you a question.
Yes. Go ahead, Louise.
Yes, I want to donate something towards this session. Where do